Hello everyone, we are going to make a painting today that shows something called atmospheric perspective, which is basically that the farther away something gets, the lighter it looks to us, and that's because of our atmosphere, the air around the earth. It almost looks kind of hazy, and you can see that happen in a mountain view, but you can also see it in cities if you're kind of up high enough and far enough away. You might also notice it on a foggy day. Sometimes the fog kind of helps with that. It makes things look lighter the farther away they are. So when you're doing something like this, we have to get lighter and darker versions of a color. We call that value. Value is the way a color changes from light to dark. And when we do this with paint, especially watercolor paint, it really has to do with how much water we're using. So to do kind of liquid watercolor paints, I recommend food dye. If you have some food dye in the kitchen, that's the way to do it. But there are some other things you could use as well if you don't have food dye. One of those things is you could use coffee or tea. I've been soaking this tea bag in here. You have to kind of work with the amount of water. I wouldn't use too much if you're going to do something like this. Maybe a tablespoon at most. You can also do a washable marker, and basically what you do, I already have a tablespoon of water in here, is you just let it sit. So I would not use a new marker. I would use an old marker, one that's almost gone. This one's not working that well. So you actually just kind of, you can stir it in there, but you got to let it sit for a while and let all of the liquid inside the marker come out into the cup. So it'll take a little bit of time. The other thing you can do, if you've got some old kind of yucky watercolor paints at home, is you could pick one of these and kind of pop out the old part, or if it doesn't have a lot left. Again, I already have about a tablespoon of water in here. And then I could just pop that out, kind of pop it into there, and then let it dissolve. And that can make my liquid watercolors as well. Okay, so those are some ways you can do that. Today I'm gonna be using food dye. I've got mine in the bottle here. And what I want to do is some measuring. So you're going to probably need some tools from the kitchen for this. I am using a teaspoon, okay? So I'm going to start by putting a teaspoon of water in 3 cups. Now I have some of those little kind of plastic throwaway cups that you might get take home food in. If you have applesauce cups, those are good too. You can also just use little bowls from the kitchen, that's fine. So I'm going to take a teaspoon of water and put it in 3 cups. And my goal is to make a light, a medium, and a dark version of my color that I'm going to paint with. So I start with just a teaspoon. You really don't need a lot for something like this. Then this might be something parents need to help with, depending on how old you are, but you're going to add 2 drops of the dye. So just 2. 2. That was pretty fast. In this one, I want to add 5. So in the medium, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then in the dark one, I want to add 10. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, and then I'm going to need to mix these up. And I always mix the light one first. Probably make sure my brush is clean too. So I'm going to stir it up. Okay, and then I'm going to go and mix the medium. And then I'm going to mix the dark version. All right, so it might help if you use a scrap piece of paper to test these on. So if I paint over dark, okay, so that's what my dark looks like. I'm going to clean my brush here and get my medium. So my medium looks like. And then my light. Okay, if you think that one of them's too close to the others, like maybe I feel like my medium and my dark are too close, I could add a little bit more to my dark to kind of fix it if I need to. So you can get it kind of right. But basically, as long as they're a little bit different, it should work just fine. All right, so now I've kind of got my colors made here. So now I am ready to get my picture done. And, oh, there's a little spot there. Okay, when I do my picture, if I want to do something that's mountains, that's great. I'm going to need 3 lines for that are kind of wavy or bumpy. If I want to do a cityscape like this one, then I'm using kind of those castle style lines where they go up and down. And again, I'm doing 3 lines. Now I like to use a colored pencil in the color that I'm painting with. I think it's less distracting than a regular pencil because those lines show up pretty well. These ones tend to blend in if they match. So I'm gonna go ahead and do kind of a mountain landscape. So I'm gonna start with like a big mountain in the background here. So there's my first kind of line. I know it might be kind of hard to see. I'm not pressing hard because I don't really want these lines to show up when I'm done. Then I'm gonna do the middle line. It's gonna be more like hills. And then the bottom line is gonna be not quite as bumpy, a little bit flatter. All right, so I've got my 3 lines. So now I'm ready to start painting, and I'm gonna start far away first with the light color. So I'm gonna get my brush ready, hold it like a pencil, and the amount of water in the brush doesn't really matter right now. Just make sure it's clean when you're doing these different colors. So I'm gonna get a dip of that first light color, and I'm gonna start painting just the mountain and try my best to go slow and stay inside the lines and spread my paint out. It is going to be important that we let each part of this dry just a tiny bit, because if my area that I'm painting now is wet and then I paint the one next to it, then they're going to end up kind of mixing together. So as I go, I'm trying not to use too much water, and I'm really trying to spread my paint out so that I don't have puddles, because if I have puddles, it's going to take a lot longer to dry. So barely press the brush. When you paint, especially with watercolors, it's really important that you're not digging the brush in. You're being real gentle. All right, I'm gonna spread this out a little. Now, that needs to dry a little bit, and so you can help it along if you want. If you have like a piece of paper or something that you can fan with, like I could use my other painting here. I could fan that a little bit, and that'll help kind of dry it. Or you could just, take a 2-minute break and then come back and check on it. But you want it to be kind of dry, and you can usually tell when it's dry because it loses that shininess that it has when it's wet. And then that'll tell you that it's ready for the next spot. All right, so then on this one here, I'm gonna jump to the medium. So I'm gonna make sure my brush is clean, and I'm gonna dip it in the medium color I made. And then I'm gonna spread that out and paint that in the next space. And again, I'm gonna make sure I really spread the color out. I don't want puddles, so I'm gonna keep moving it till it's all spread out before getting more. If I get more too soon, then I end up kind of dripping in places I don't want it to go. So just make sure you're doing a good job spreading it out before you get more. I'm kind of real slow going around the edge to try and stay inside the lines. If I see like a little puddle, I go back and spread that out. Then once I've got that edge, then I kind of work my way down to the next line. So again, this area that I make with my medium color has to dry before I do the last part. Otherwise, they're gonna get mixed together. And I am going off the edges of the paper here. So if you're painting at home, you might want to put something else underneath it, or just have a paper towel to clean the table with. Okay, a little spot right there. All right, so now I'm going to let that dry for a couple of minutes. And again, I can help it along. If I have like a little paper or something I want to fan it with, that helps dry it pretty quick. After that has dried, then you move on to the dark. And I think it looks like it's dry along the edge here. So I'm gonna make sure my brush is clean and then dip it in the dark. And again, work to spread my paint out so I'm not having big puddles. And then once that is finished, you can let it dry and you will have your finished painting showing atmospheric perspective, where things get lighter in the distance and are darker close up. All right, so I hope you have fun with this. I look forward to seeing your work. Enjoy.